Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic. We've got all sorts of holidays going on this week. Palm Sunday, Easter Sunday, Passover, all converged at the same time. So lots of people spending lots of time with family. Especially since last year at this time, everybody was locked down.
Yeah, last year we just zoomed on Easter, and this year got family coming over, granddaughter, and so on and so forth. And winding down a windy March today. The trees are doing a nice job waltzing out in the woods, but everything is okay. So, what a difference a year makes. Last year we were all freaking out, and now everybody's just full of optimism and smiling and so on and so forth. And we have a very optimistic guest with us today, too.
Yes, we do. We have Jill Monson-Bishop from the American Cancer Society. Jill, how are you doing today?
Oh, I love that intro. I need to carry a tiny Chip and Eric with me everywhere I go. Imagine I can have a little chip on my shoulder. Sorry.
The first time I ever heard that.
Right.
Today.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. So why don't we start out? Tell us a little bit about what you do over at the American Cancer Society, what your job is, and how you're helping with their mission.
Sure, I appreciate it. So I just got a new title, which is kind of funny because it really is, it's still not distinctive of what I do for a living, but my title here is Senior Development Manager. Essentially, I live in Western Massachusetts in Springfield, Mass., but geographically, I kind of help to oversee Western Massachusetts and all of Connecticut. Of course, the American Cancer Society is not only national, but we're also global. But that's my little neck of the woods, which I love because I get to be local, but be part of, something large. And my role is really twofold. One is to make sure every single person, every one of your podcast listeners knows that we're here and knows what we have available to them for resources and information. And then secondarily, my role is to engage volunteers and donors to get involved with ACS.
That's great. You said something right there that's very important. You want people to know that you're there. What's the biggest misconception about the American Cancer Society? What don't people know that you do?
That we're here. It's very, very frustrating, Eric. So I actually have lost both of my parents to cancer some years back now, but while going through that, I didn't know what the American Cancer Society had available to me as a caregiver. And I think that that's a big misperception is people assume that we are here for the cancer patient, those with a diagnosis, but we're actually here for everyone, anyone that the cancer diagnosis could touch. So it could be a spouse, a child, it could be a coworker, an employer, all of those individuals, everyone is affected when one individual gets a diagnosis. And I think that's kind of something that sometimes gets a little overlooked. And people will say, well, how are you available? And I like to say, like, at the most basic level, like, because, to me, it's always about building that foundation, is we have a 24/7, 365 cancer helpline. It's our National Cancer Information Center. And when I first started, I kept calling it NCIS. My boss kept going, Jill, not NCIS. That's the show. And, okay. So it's the NCIC, but it's actually staffed with human beings, which I know is like a crazy phenomenon, right? Like actual people. And they're here in the United States and they're there for you. Like I said, 24/7, 365. So Eric, you mentioned, we have all these amazing holidays going on, Passover and into the Easter. And that can be hard for an individual, maybe somebody who's lost somebody or maybe somebody who recently had a diagnosis. It doesn't matter if it's a holiday. You can call NCIC and talk to somebody. And what's available on the other end of the phone is someone that has information and resources. And then some people are like, you know what, I don't want to speak to someone. And that's okay, because I can understand that. Sometimes you just want to do your own research, right? What I can tell people is the internet can be the like the worst thing in the world. Like, it's like my brother is like he'll call my wife who's an EMT and say like, I think I have and it's like, were you on WebMD again? Stop it. So what I like about our website, which is very simply cancer.org, I mean, it can't be any easier than that, is that it's all of the scientific information. This is all of the accurate, if you read it on cancer.org or any of the many pages within our site, that you are getting the right information. And, I mean, that can be, again, about your diagnosis. We talk a lot, the three of us get together at various networking things, and we talk a lot about screenings. I know we're wrapping up March, but March is colorectal cancer month. We have quite a few friends in common that we know have had various types of cancer, like prostate cancer. And those are screenable cancers. It doesn't always mean if you get your screenings that you won't get cancer, but it certainly can help you and set you in the right direction. So I recommend highly that people go, if you just search on our website, it'll give you like when you should get screened for men and women and the age groups. So it's really helpful.
Yeah, it's great that all that information is available. And let's face it, American Cancer is a trusted source. There's too many sources out there where people will Google their symptoms and, they've gotten poison ivy, but they're convinced it's skin cancer because they went down the rabbit hole.
Very, very much. And, I think you guys started off the conversation by talking about this really great energy that our country is seeing as we move towards sort of reopening, if you will. And I think that it's true. It's wonderful. Many, many, many. I mean, I think the president's going to speak today. Many, many vaccines are being given. But for someone that has cancer or, again, a loved one, there's a lot of questions around, okay, well, what about COVID-19 and cancer? And what does that look like? And we have a whole section on the website that we built out. And you can, if you don't want to go on the website again, you can call. But it's all about COVID-19 and cancer. And I think that, again, it's that scientific data. It's the right information. You're not, having somebody tell you, okay, you can go out as long as you, permanently dip your hands in bleach or whatever. You know what I mean? Like this is the right information. And I want people to get that correct information so that they feel more confident in their everyday life.
Yeah. And
COVID has been a major problem. We interviewed an oncologist on our sister podcast, Carnivore Radio, and one of his big concerns was the fact that people were too afraid to go into the doctor's offices and the hospitals to get their screenings for fear of catching COVID.
It's a huge, Eric, huge. And I'm so glad you pointed that out. So as an ACS employee, we've been having numerous national calls with our medical, team about the importance of screening, and literally we don't advertise, right? So we're not out there spending a ton of money, which we shouldn't be, because that's money we can do programming with. But therefore, I'm the mouthpiece, you're the mouthpiece, Chip, you're the mouthpiece. So I'm screaming from the rooftops about screenings. It is safe to get screened. The doctor's offices, these doctor's practices, they are following every CDC protocol to make sure you are definitely safer in your doctor's office than you are in the big W department store, if you will. So get screened, because the fallout of COVID for cancer, unfortunately, is going to be pretty devastating. Our numbers are expected to be way higher than predicted before, we obviously knew about COVID. So please, whether it's a mammogram, I had one back in the fall. I was safe. I have not gotten COVID. Having a mammogram, having, your colonoscopy, having, there's all different kinds of screenings now. And so, and doing that, because you're right. And thank you for that oncologist and that word, because it's one of the ways to stay healthy is to get checked.
Yeah. So obviously you're a resource for education and support and a lot of other things, but you actually met us by joining the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce.
I did.
Awareness is a huge part of it, but obviously the American Cancer Society, like all the other nonprofits, have taken a financial hit during these times. And really, one of the best ways that you can grow your network is you invest an hour and a half of your time every Friday morning. I call it business development time.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't do any better by going out and knocking on doors and so on and so forth than getting involved with all the crazies in the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce. Tell us a little bit about how you developed into that and the successes that you've had with the Real Men Wear Pink and all the other things you're doing for this. That if everybody's listening around the country, they can get involved in doing things like this too. And if they have people who work for the Cancer Society who aren't there in the network scene, they should be doing it. So talk about the power of networking.
Well, thank you, Chip. I mean, first of all, Chip, you are absolutely right. It is a crazy group of individuals at the West Hartford Chamber, but I wouldn't be anywhere else early on a Friday morning. If you are or do business in the West Hartford area, now that we're more of a global society, please stop by one of our networking events on Friday mornings because they are phenomenal. The West Hartford Chamber is leaps and bounds above many, not all, but many chambers. They do a great job. And I love networking. I love the beauty in the differences of individuals. And so, there are such great and vast opportunities around the United States, even in some other countries, to get involved with the American Cancer Society. And in particular, right now, one of the things that we're really focusing on is addressing cancer disparities. And what I love when I think about West Hartford Chamber or many of these other groups around the country is the differences of people that are on, be it race differences, gender differences, age differences. For instance, research is a very important part of what American Cancer Society does. And we just were awarded a $5 million grant. And we took that and we broke it up amongst researchers. And it's specifically going to go to these researchers who are doing studies about why Black men get prostate cancer at higher rates than other ethnicities and have worse outcomes. So that's like putting our money where our mouth is, right? Now, I'm not expecting that somebody that's listening has $5 million. But if they do, my name is Jill Monson, and they can look me up. Eric and Chip can get them my contact. But no, I mean, this is the thing. Some people have $5 and maybe somebody that they love passed, and that $5, they're like, I don't know what to do with it. First and foremost, you can certainly just go directly on our website and you can make a donation at any point. But what Chip is talking about is more of that long-term, I like to call it my marathon. And it's building that relationship. There are individuals across the country that work for the American Cancer Society in almost every community. So for instance, if someone is in this area and they're like, I want to get involved, what I like to do is tell people, it's not just a menu of, okay, we have Relay for Life, we have Making Strides Against Breast Cancer, we have Research Hers, which is one of my initiatives, and we have Real Men Wear Pink that Chip mentioned. But really what we have is the ability to meet you where you are. And what I mean by that is like, I want to talk to you and I want to understand how has cancer affected you? Or if it hasn't yet, how do you want to be a part of preventing it from affecting you in your circle? So once we get to know each other, I can really find a partnership, because that's what I like to look at it like, is like something that's that marathon, like long-term together. And it's not just like long-term, keep writing me checks. I'm never opposed to that, of course, but no, it's really more about like how we make sure, like maybe you have a bunch of employees. Okay, great. Well, are all of your employees, are you advocating that they get screened? So maybe we can help you come up with a program. Maybe we can help you come up with language that you can put in your company newsletter that's about things that individuals that are on your team can do to stay healthier. So there's a lot of us trying to figure out what you really need and then meeting you there. So I hope that answers your question, Chip.
Yeah, well, I would, because we are virtual and worldwide now with this, I mean, I would highly recommend you to look up some of your counterparts around the country. And if they want to come to our meeting some Friday morning just to see how it's done, hopefully bring the joy to other places around the world. I mean, that's what it's for. I mean, we have
absolutely
the whole world is our stage right now. And we have the potential to just reach out to so many different people like we never did before, just because we're doing it this way.
Yeah.
So you can bring
I love it.
If half the meeting next week is ACS or in a couple of weeks, that's fine with me.
I'll see what I can do.
I'm not running the timer.
Any chance that I get to share, because I feel like sometimes, even though cancer affects so many people, sometimes feel like they're alone. And I never want anyone to feel like they're alone, be it a caregiver. We just built out, for instance, our whole caregiver section. And it's all this information. And it's like, wow, it's the first time we've ever, not we ACS, but like we as a global society have kind of like stepped back and realized that it's just as important that the caregiver stays healthy as the person with the cancer, because that person has so much undue pressure, on them. So yeah, it's remarkable. I can't believe every day that I get to get up and do this for what I call work. But yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we've been talking about how, virtual meetings and how the world has changed. How did ACS have to pivot during this year of COVID?
I love that word. Every time, and I don't know, but I was a Friends fan. And so I see Ross with the couch going, pivot, like that's why it's become like the meme.
That's a much better image than the ship in the Suez Canal trying to pivot.
Oh my God. Thank God that finally got like loose, right? Like I was like, oh, somebody give that poor, boat some WD-40 and everybody get out there. Like we can do this. No, Eric, it's without a doubt. Every single person that's listening, whether you are a business or a nonprofit, or whether you're a solopreneur or you're a huge company. I don't think there was one organization, one entity that didn't have to somehow pivot. And if you think you didn't have to pivot, I would, and I'm not the business coach here, you guys are, but like, I would definitely step back and think, maybe we did pivot, or maybe we should have pivoted. The American Cancer Society, like many, national nonprofits, we had a lot of events. We were very event heavy. Our Relay for Life, I'm sure you guys have heard of it. Everybody's heard of it. Relay for Life is, a tried and true, walk the track. Some did 12 hours, some did 24, and it was incredible. And it still is. We're not doing it anymore. But we looked at how can we take that and modify it? And how can we make sure, again, that we're meeting people where they are? Because that's not for everybody. Clearly technology is, a priority. And we have all these generations for the first time ever, if you think about it, you know what I mean? Like there's essentially 4 to 5 different, generational categories, if you will, and everyone does things differently. So I think, what we did was we paused. I give a lot of credit to our CEO, Gary Reedy, who said, okay, first let's take care of our team. And that, and it was hard. We had to furlough some people, and eventually we had to lay off some people. And that's a hard decision to make. But in doing so, it was like they wanted to make sure that health and wellness was taken care of for the team. Because we're a health organization, we had to pivot in a lot of ways. Our Hope Lodge, which is someday we're all going to get to go to together on a little field trip. But our Hope Lodge, if you live in some of the major metropolitan areas like Boston, New York City, down in Atlanta, there are these buildings, and you've seen them and you've been able to go into them, called Hope Lodge. And Hope Lodge is like, blows my mind, because basically, for instance, if you're like in Hartford or if you're in Western Massachusetts and you get a diagnosis and you can only be treated at one of the Boston hospitals or a New York City hospital, you can, through your doctors and through the social work system, connect with ACS and potentially stay at a Hope Lodge with a caregiver free of charge for your whole treatment. So, I have a friend here in our area who had to go out to Boston for 6 weeks of treatment. And that would have been, financially monstrous, right? But more than that, like not the healthiest setting to have to stay in a hotel. So this was pre-COVID. They were able to stay in Hope Lodge. Unfortunately, as a health organization, Hope Lodges had to shut down during COVID. Many of them are starting now to get ready to get back online. Our hope is the second half of this year, like you guys were saying earlier, that everything will be back to some semblance of whatever it's going to look like, and things will be good to go. Also, our Road to Recovery program, which is individuals who take cancer patients to treatments, but it's in your car. So we obviously had to pause that. So it was frustrating, but what we did in exchange was made sure we built up all of our resources, made sure we had the most accurate information, on our site, took a lot of our on-ground activities and made them have, virtual components. And now we're looking at how we can hybrid them or stay virtual if that makes sense. So that's a little bit about how we pivoted.
That's a lot to do. I'm on the board of Connecticut Humane Society, and I know we had to pivot everything. And I've dealt with nonprofits for the last year, talking to them about how they pivoted and what happened with donations. And there are so many nonprofits that their donations dropped between 60 and 70%. And there's actually some that dropped a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, a struggle for these nonprofits to return to normalcy. So what have you guys got planned going forward to sort of embrace the new normal? And I hate that phrase, but
I do too, because I always thought I was never normal to begin with, so I don't know how I'm going to be the new normal.
Normal's overrated, but
I always tell people I'm either left or right of center. It's not political. It's just I'm definitely not in the normal range. I think the thing I mentioned was the technology piece. Really, again, meeting individuals where they are, companies where they are, instead of being so prescriptive with this is what we do, sort of trying to figure out where there's need and then fulfilling the need where possible. And it can be challenging. I mean, we're a huge organization in terms of, geography. So being nimble can be a challenge. We did some reorganization as a nonprofit. We reorged, which basically just kind of shifted the people who were here into different roles and positions and stuff, which I think, wearing my business hat, because I used to be a business owner, made total sense. We made some decisions that some people didn't understand, but I think made sense. Like we are in many communities where we don't have local offices anymore. We gave up those high-priced leases. I think it makes sense because, who cares? Like, I'm still in the community. I'm just working from my house instead of 6 miles down the road in a big building. We were able to take that money then and invest in research and future programming. One of the things that I'm currently working on and we're doing across the country, so anyone listening, if they get a hold of you guys, you can hook them up with me and I can, forward them on, but is this initiative called Research Hers. So it's that end of the word research, but capitalized. And to me, it's just the most appropriate time to talk about research because of everything we've been watching in the news with COVID, but then also to talk about women. Whether you politically are in line with the current administration or not, you have to be kind of like, wow, we have a female vice president. That's a big deal for girls and women across the globe. So Research Hers is an initiative where women can actually raise awareness and raise donations around female cancer researchers. And I'm working on that here in Western Mass and Connecticut, and it blows my mind how exciting it is. Like, I love it.
So we've talked a lot about American cancer, but you've also had your own challenges that you've worked. Would you care to talk about that? Dealing with all of COVID and all your work with American Cancer, and on top of that, having your own health challenges.
Yeah, 2020. So most of your listeners don't know me that well, but for people who do know me, one thing about Jill is I never do anything just like halfway. I always have to go like all the way and above because that's just who I am. So I decided right before COVID to fall and tear my Achilles tendon. I didn't decide to do it. It decided for me. And in tearing my Achilles tendon, I was extremely overweight. I was 300 plus pounds. And so when I fell, I really messed it up. I had to have surgery. It was on my birthday, actually, in February, but it's done. But I had a birthday surgery and then proceeded to, be disabled. Basically, I couldn't move, but I did do ACS stuff, literally, like was doing like web things in the hospital. But was home, recovered, after the appropriate amount of weeks and started my physical therapy. Unfortunately, when I had a routine appointment with my surgeon's office to see a PA. And this was literally in the mid-May, maybe, right around when COVID was really hitting our area hard. So I had this appointment and the PA said, I think you have a clot. And I was like, yeah, right, whatever. Because I had broken the ankle a couple times in the past and they always think you have a clot. So they sent me over to the hospital. And unfortunately, again, height of COVID, it was Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock. And now I'm in the ultrasound area, and the woman does the thing. And she's convinced too that it's just going to be like a fluke. So she like tells me to order our takeout. So Jen and I prepare, like I call my wife and say, okay, honey, order the takeout. Well, she comes back in and says, I think you should cancel the takeout. I was like, okay, why? And she said, well, you have a blood clot in your leg from your femoral artery, which if folks don't know is up by your groin, to your ankle. I was like, excuse me? So it was the largest clot they'd ever seen. Again, go big or go home, right? Right, Chip?
Right, because you don't do anything halfway.
Nope, nothing ever. So they said, well, you're going to go to the emergency room now. And of course, nobody could come. Like Jen couldn't come. So I was in the emergency room, a bunch of stuff shoved up my nose. I definitely found that I had a brain because they hit it a few times. Everybody's in like their ET costumes, walking around, and you're in like the glass room. And it was really terrifying to be completely honest. I lost my mom young. She was only 55 when she passed away. So I think I've always had this realization that you can pass away early, but I don't think I ever really thought I could die. And this was that time. I made a FaceTime call to my wife and said, okay, honey, here's what you need to know. Here's where this is and that is, and the key to this is. And I didn't think I was coming home, and that can really throw you. I did stay in the hospital for a little while, which is unusual. Usually they just give you a blood thinner and send you home, but they decided to scan my lungs and found that the clot had actually gone. It was described as a butterfly sitting in the middle of my chest and branching out into both lungs. That was not great. So I stayed for a while, came home, got what I thought was better, and then ended up back in the hospital because I couldn't literally take a breath, and was back for a while. And then came home, and by the grace of some higher power, I decided that I didn't want to not be here. So I took my 316-pound self on June 1st and started a medically supervised weight loss program to try to live, basically, because the alternative for me was definitely going to be death. And I'm pretty excited because tomorrow is my weigh-in day. So as of last Tuesday, I've lost 136 and a half pounds. So thank you. So yeah, so it can be done. And I put that out there, not because I want people to feel like bad about themselves, but life is so much better. It's so worth living. Like, don't give up on yourself. Find your thing, whatever your thing is.
That's such a great message. And I mean, you're dealing with all of that in the middle of COVID. It's really inspiring to see how you've come through it, and the fact that you still have such a great attitude about all of it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's funny because it's all so personal, right? Like, so I appreciate you saying that, but there's days when I just feel like, I have the worst attitude. Like, I'm not like, I'm in a yucky, I keep calling it my funk. I've been in this funk, and there's no like reason, but I think like as a society, we have to give ourselves a little bit of like permission to just be okay with whatever we feel on whatever day it is. Because the world's been really topsy-turvy for a while now.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people have been dealing with so much stress. There's been an uptick in suicides, unfortunately, because the stress level in people has been so high. So, yes, you have to accept that, this is how you feel and focus on getting through it rather than suppressing it.
Right. And allowing yourself, like, I think all three of us can kind of relate to this. Like I in my head, I hear Chip's voice on, a Friday morning, and it's, I'm definitely known. People will say like, oh my God, you're always happy. And, yeah, I mean, I relatively have a upbeat personality, but some of this is, and it's not acting, but it's work. And what I mean by that is like,
yep.
Last week on Monday and Tuesday, I was in the dumps. I was having a really hard time, and I didn't want to share it with a ton of people, but I have a few people, and that's what I say is find your people and have them to be able to be yourself. And those are the people that I can peel back my layer and say like, hey guys, I'm having a tough time and I don't know why. And because unfortunately, Eric, you're right. The rate of mental health issues and suicide is increased. But we can work on that together. We can trust each other. And I just, please find, if you're listening to us and you feel like you're in your funk, I get it. Just find somebody, anybody to talk to. If you want to talk to me, I am not a medical professional, but get a hold of these guys and they'll share my information. And Lord knows I'll at least make you laugh, or I'll try to,
Exactly. It's all about having people you can trust, having people you can talk to, and working together.
Very much.
All right, so we are at the end of our time.
No!
We are, yes. So before we go, Jill, if you can tell people how they can get a hold of the American Cancer Society.
Absolutely.
And the NCIC number.
Absolutely. So the easiest way, because it's the thing when you're listening to something audio, it's easy to remember, is our website, cancer.org. From there, you can get everything you need. But some people prefer phone, which is awesome. Our NCIC phone number is 800-227-2345. So 800-227-2345. And if someone wants to email me directly, if they can remember it, you certainly can. It's Jill, like Jack and Jill, .Monson, which is actually MONSON, so all O's, Jill.Monson@cancer.org, and I can point you in the right direction.
Great. So Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for our listeners this week?
Well, first of all, it's just been very inspirational. I mean, we talked a lot about battling cancer and so on and so forth. And one of the biggest things that got you through is that you are totally aware that you can have a positive reaction at any time you want and grab charge of yourself. And you have relationships out there, part of which is through networking and other things, but nobody can do it alone. But we're always going to have our ups and downs. You choose positivity. And obviously that's a big thing in fighting a cancer or whatever else you got. And that's just so cool. And it's rare that the compliment, congratulations on being less a person than you used to be, is appropriate. However, I think it's fantastic. And, God bless you for everything you do. And go to cancer.org. Just go to the homepage, all of you folks out there.
Yeah.
And they have a whole bunch of options out there of information that you can get, how you can volunteer, donate, and that kind of thing. So thank you so much, Jill. And keep on keeping on.
Thank you. Everybody go get screamed. Do it for us. We love you. Mwah.
Yeah, I think for me, the big takeaway is the resources are out there and you are not alone. No matter what you're dealing with, whether it's cancer, mental health, stress, you are not alone. So there's help out there for you and feel free to grab it. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.